video we're going to be carrying on with Hadrathus, or however you want to pronounce it. There we are. There he is. Now I've actually reread the description of him, and I've given him a different coloured cape, clothing. He was wearing a black cloak with a hood when he met Conan, but I'm doing him this way. Right, so what do we have to go with? Well, let's start off, as I usually do, with skin tones, and it was UNGOR flesh that we used. So let's pop some more of that onto the palette. I keep having to clean my palette because using watery paints, after a while they tend to bleed in together, and they don't, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't seem to be usable. So that's the reason why I'm always starting with a clean palette. But never mind, as long as we get the job done, it doesn't matter, does it? Okay, so let's get back into this UNGOR flesh and add some highlights to the flesh. Now there's not going to be all that many highlights because his face will be hidden kind of under under the hood, as it were, so there'll be a lot of shadow there, but we will be using some what do you call it? We'll be using some highlights, or quite a bit more highlights, on his fingers, etc. We're going to be doing something a little different with these as well, because there is fire above these, so we're going to have to do some lighting to reflect the colour of the flame. There we go. And now his toes. There we are. That's that done. Now wait and see how that dries, and then we might have to go back and add some more highlights to that, but as I say, we'll wait and see how it dries. Next we're going with the INCUBI Darkness, which is the one we used for the robe, cape, whatever you want to call it. And we will be lighting this up as we go along, because I'm making this more paler as we go, rather, not lighting it up. So I just don't want to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Painting it up like a Christmas tree. And that's not what we're doing. Okay, so what we are doing is just making it paler by adding more colour. Now, in order to make it paler, first of all we are adding the same colour as we originally did to this, because what we did was we painted this section and then we added a wash to darken it down a bit. So adding this colour will actually make it a little bit lighter. And not actually darken it down. Although having a dark colour here is quite a good idea. There we go. Some areas we are going to have it quite dark, so we won't need to highlight, obviously. And the reason we're doing quite a bit of this colour on the borders is because we are going to be making it a little paler in a moment and going around the edges. There we go. And I'm going to treat that little hole there as damage to the cloak. It may be a little bit of a issue with the moulding, but you can actually do it as a damage to the cloak, and we'll add a little bit of a weird colour, shall we say, to it to show that it is in fact, it looks more, it's more frayed than it is just a hole. I'm going to try that anyway, see how it works. Hopefully, oops, I can make it look hopefully I can make it look right. I'll just add a little more water to my brush, back into the colour once again, and we'll carry on adding this colour to the high points. Alright. And we're going to really finish painting this before we do, as I mentioned earlier, the effect for the flame. We'll see, hopefully I can do it. It's not something I've had a great amount of success with, unfortunately, but I keep trying my best to get it done, and hopefully I can work out how to do it, and then fingers crossed it works. Because every time I've done it, it seems to have gone ever so slightly wrong. I'll just come across there now. Just like so. And we'll leave that as is for the time being, and we will go into the Eshin Grey. Which is that colour. It's a dark grey colour, and we'll pop that on the palette. Okay, we need a need a bit on there, just so we have enough to play with, as it were. We'll get some water on the brush, and now we'll go into parts with this ashen grey and do exactly the same with this piece of, or this part of the clothing. So we'll be coming back and using what's the word I'm looking for? Highlights. We won't be going back with using a paler colour for highlights, and I know it does look as though some of this colour hasn't taken up the very edges of the moulding, but the thing is, we need a dark colour on which to put the highlights, otherwise it's not going to look right. So that's all we can do there. Next is Caliban green. And I'll add a little bit of that. We don't really want all that much of this because there's not all that much on the model. Once again, I'll add the water. Get the paint on the brush, and then we'll start adding it to the mini. And the darker the area, the less likely there is I'm going over it with this run of highlighting, as you may or may not have noticed. In the main recesses, I've kept away from those and just put these where I believe it's needed. Now also I'm going to put this around that tear there, because I want it to look as though it is a tear and not I'm not sure whether it is a tear or whether it is a hole or whether it's just a bit of a bubble in the GITZ. Oh dear God, in the moulding process. But I've got it how I want it. So that's that. Next we're going to be using some Rune Lord brass. You can see that. And that is going to be going over when it actually mixes together. That will be going over keys and other metal parts of the miniature. I'm saying keys, I think they look like keys. It's not mixed fully. I'll get a brush and use the handle to mix the paint properly. When they're standing, sometimes they do actually clog up at the bottom, especially with these metal paints. It's just something that happens, it can't be helped. As you can see though, it's all clogged up at the bottom, and that's all the metallic, shall we say, dyes and stuff. So we just need to give it a good mixing. Once it's mixed in thoroughly, I'll give that a bit of a rinse. Give the tub another shake. Try and get it all mixed in together again, because what's in the lid is still very watery. And now we'll try and see if this will do the job. It's looking a lot thicker now, and hopefully, yep, that seems fine. There we go. I'm going to go over these as well. There we go. And I'm also going to go over the tips of the wand with this. In fact, I might yet go over it with a totally different colour afterwards, depending on how this dries. If it dries bright enough, I'll be alright. I don't think it will. I'll also do the back here as well. There we go. That will do. There we are. And I've just noticed a little bit of blue on his hand, which we don't want, obviously. Definitely don't want blue there. Well, not such a strong blue anyway. You'll see what I'm going to be doing in a bit with that, so we'll see why I said that. Okay, so that's next. What I'm going to be using is on the flame. And this we're going to be using a slightly different colour to the blue that's there, and the one we're going to be using is a new paint that I've never used before, AVERLAND Sunset. And this is going to be a dry brush. So what we'll do is we'll get the paint on the brush after giving it a shake. Wipe it off on a piece of paper, towel, and then just dry brush over the edges, so we get a yellowy blue flame. I'm not too convinced that that's okay, to be honest. I have tried it, I'm not sure whether that's right. So what I'm also going to do as well is using a little bit of white. I'm just going to go into the white with a very fine detail brush and just dab here and there, low down near the palm of his hand. There we are. That's that done. Go back into the flesh colour, the UNGOR flesh. Because I have noticed about that. I'm going to have to do this and then go over it once again with the regular flesh shade underneath there anyway. Now what we need to do is lighten the other colours as well now. So using some Screaming Skull, we're going to get quite a bit of this on here because we're going to be using it for a few different colours. Okay, so I'm going to add the touch down here. And in that we're going to be adding some of this green that we use for the cape. There we are. Wash that, get our finer detail brush, and for this part now we'll be going over just the edges and any high points that we can see. Just like so. Again, we're trying to keep this colour fairly dark because with the description of him having a black cloak, it will seem ever so slightly strange him wearing something that's pale, and I don't necessarily want to go too far away from descriptions, but bear in mind I want to do my own take on it, so I don't really necessarily want to be completely true to on the actual descriptions of the minis. Here we are. I'm just going to so I'm just going to go over any high points of this, anywhere where we've added the previous highlights. And there we go. Next, we're going to go in with, again, the flesh tone and a little bit of the Screaming Skull too. Down with the flesh tone a little bit more, because we don't want him to have too deeper skin tone, because let's face it, he's a magic user, and I don't think he would have such darker coloured skin. Yeah. I'm sorry if I'm a little quiet. I'm just finding this one a little bit more I have to concentrate on this one a little bit more because of all the little details there are. Oops. So I apologise for that. Next we have some more of the Screaming Skull. Into this we're putting the Eshin Grey. Just like so. And again, using the finer detail brush that we have here, we will go along and just add a few bits here and like so. And so all we are trying to do is just to add the highlights now. This is getting to the finishing part of this particular mini. We have some of this Caliban green to go in with the Screaming Skull this time. There we go. And I would like to point out to anybody who is listening or who is watching and thinks it might be a nice idea to make a comment about my breathing. Yes, I am having trouble with asthma again. The weather is fluctuating outside. It's going from wet and overcast to nice and crisp and frosty, and then back to wet and overcast again, and it's playing havoc with my breathing. So I apologise if my breathing is a little bit iffy, but it doesn't inconvenience you as much as it inconveniences me. So if you could refrain from making some comments about it, I will not feel the need to reply. Because if I reply, I'm not usually very subtle about what I say to people who make some comment about the fact that my breathing is a little bit iffy. I'm fully aware it is. Part of the issue of asthma. If you don't like it, watch another video. If you can cope with it, you're more than welcome to continue watching mine. There we are. And that is probably as subtle and diplomatic as I can be on the subject. There we are. We don't look much on this, just like an edge highlight, shall we say. Not something I like doing, but there we are. So that's so far Hadrathus. What I want to do next is, I'm not happy. In fact, I'm saying I'm not happy. It does look quite good actually. I'll say I'm quite pleased with the way that copper's come out. I have missed a bit though. There's a little ring here that I should have done in that colour. But I forgot it. I'm quite happy with the way the staff is looking, and in fact I think I'm quite happy with the way everything's looking except for the flame. I don't think that new AVERLAND sunset is bright enough for what I want. So let's go with Flash GITZ yellow. That one hopefully be brighter, and if not, all I have to do is just paint over the flame once again in white, and then just give it a coating with the Gulliman blue. So I want to give it a slightly strange colour with the blue background. And the yellow highlights. And now, once that's done, what I'm going to do is, using the Gulliman blue, so this is the bit I don't really get a chance to do correctly. I'm going to add a little bit of that onto the palette. Okay, so hopefully it gets a little bit of dilution there, and then we will go over fingers, arms, and anything on this side with the Gulliman blue. Oh yeah, and I'm even going to add it there we are. So I'm hoping once that dries the bluey tint will show up. But as it stands, that is it for Hadrathus, whatever you want to call him. All I need to do now is just paint his base, and we'll do that the way we have done with the others, which is just iron oxide plastered all over. Although this time the brush doesn't seem to be as wet. So I don't really want to spend too much time painting the base at the moment. That is going to be done at a different time. But this, I think, is the longest mini we've spent on paintwork, on painting for Conan so far. And I hope you think is not a bad job. But that is all I can do for him now. So here he is once again, Hadrathus. Hopefully once this blue glaze dries, it will look as though there's a blue cast coming from the flame. But that's all we have time for this video. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time, as always, take care, God bless, and bye for now.